Good morning, I'm Benjamin Meeks, and I'm interning with Mr. Noah Sanders, the author of Born Again Dirt. And the question for today that I'm asking him is, would you encourage other people to start farming? And if so, why? What are those reasons? That's a big question for me right now as I'm really considering starting my own farming business, and just really curious what were his motivations and what would be in his encouragements for people who are thinking about doing that. So I'm gonna ask him in a little bit. We'll see what he says. What you doing there, Noah?
Just pulling suckers on tomato plants.
Nice.
They're looking happy.
Yeah.
Except for that one that got eaten by something.
Oof.
But that's
Death and decay for sure.
Yeah.
Well, question for right now is, would you encourage folks, in particular Christian folks, to pursue a career in farming? And if so, what are some of those reasons? And what would be reasons not to? You know, because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But that's pertinent to me for sure, as I'm considering that, and I'm curious, what are those aspects?
Yeah. Well, I think from a Christian perspective, the us honoring God and seeing, why did He create us in the first place? And you look back to the Garden of Eden. Growing plants and tending a garden was a real tangible way that God showed us what taking dominion looks like, kind of reflecting His image in the way that we steward creation. And there's lots of other ways to do it, reordering creation for increased beauty, productivity, and habitability, or way for man to utilize it, could be applied in the way you make computers and laptops or cars, just as much in the way you reorder for it in the garden. But at the same time, I think gardening is sort of the least, kind of like if you're going to be faithful with little economically and as far as obeying God and taking care of His creation, if we don't have this covered, then we need to be cautious about moving past it to other things. And I really feel like that I would encourage anybody that has any land to be faithful with it. Whatever state you're at, God doesn't look at, once you pass 100 acres, then you should consider being a farmer. Or
you're saying even if it's like a little window,
right? Even if it's a window box,
or yeah.
I mean, I think somebody asked me one time, should Christians be concerned with food production or agriculture? I mean, we all eat, so we all are participating in it at some level, and I think we as Christians should want to see faithfulness in that area, especially among the people that claim to be following God.
Yeah.
That if that's part of the way we express that, if nobody's doing it, nobody's purposely trying to do it in a way that honors God, then not only is God not being, are we not going to receive some of the benefits of it, but God's name is not going to be glorified as much.
Yeah.
And if the unbelievers are the only ones that are really succeeding and being faithful in that area. So I think it's really a good application wherever you're at, whether you're growing some of your own food, a lot of your own food, like on a homestead level, or you're growing food to sell to other people.
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody that's interested in it to start with those different increments. Like if you're playing a violin, you wouldn't quit your job and buy a violin and a how to play violin book and expect to make a living tomorrow if you hadn't played before. So some people try to do that with farming, and sometimes God shows mercy and they do it. But it's typically we're going to start with little and work our way up. And even if God only ever has you grow some of your own food in a backyard and you still primarily do some other work, that's great. We need tons more people doing that. Same thing with just growing a lot of your own food. But as far as just a practical point of view, we live in a society where so many things are, so many systems that involve our food are fragile. And I believe my responsibility for providing for my family and for the needs of those around me and the poor in my community isn't limited to, if it's not at the store, then I can't feed my family. I need to say, where is it coming from? Who am I depending on? Is it big corporate systems, or is it people that I trust and care about? And so I think that there's a need for us as Christians as well. We want to be free to follow God and apply His Word in our lives.
Yeah.
And if you look historically, being able to supply your own food is integrally linked to freedom. And like in the American Revolution,
Yeah.
I was listening to one book, and the lady was saying we, give a lot of credence to the generals and all the armies in the American Revolution, and that was, great, and they definitely did a great job. But if it wasn't for the homesteads and the farms that were producing the daily necessities and the staples of life, we would have never been able to separate ourselves from the tyranny of Great Britain at the time.
Yeah.
And that's a sobering thought. So I think as we think about providing for our families, providing for the needy in our community, and being in a position to help other people, you can only do that if you have the basics covered yourself. And the basics of basics is food. If you don't eat, you really don't have the liberty to do anything else. And if you don't have your own family's needs covered and those of the people around you, then you don't have the freedom to go and then begin to help people who do have a lack. So it's another reason I think that we, even if it's just on a very small scale, should be learning how to do agriculture.
How to steward.
Yeah, it's just basic stewardship of what God's given us.
Yeah.
And I think through that, God will provide a lot of neat opportunities for us to show, the character of Christ in what we do. And it can be a light more than a really practical way to shine light into our communities in a real tangible way.
Yes, yes. And I'm noticing with myself that the more time I spend in God's creation, trying to steward it's like the effects of that carry over into my life, I'm really more careful to realize every little thing I do throughout the week has an impact on not only myself but other people, and they feed off of each other. So
well, like that saying, you can tell the state of a man's heart by the way his field looks. It's not just farming, there's other areas of life that it applies as well. But farming is a good visible way for people to come and say, wow, tell me about your garden, tell me about what you're doing. And if you're doing it because of Christ, then you don't have to say, oh, and by the way, let me tell you about Jesus. But it's such a part of what you're doing that it's real, So
it's organic.
Organic.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
See you later.